After his first birthday, a child says his first words, and it is an largely awaited moment full of enthusiasm for his family. Some children learn new words very rapidly, and this process is often referred to by psychologists as vocabulary explosion, whereas for other children it is more gradual. The little one has mastered the principle where all things have a name, and when he does not know the name of something, he asks an adult. At this age, in fact, many games that the little ones love to play with their parents or peers revolve around the activity of naming objects, people, animals, body parts, colors, and so forth. At the age of 2, on average, a child's vocabulary is made up of between 140 and 440 words. Therefore, the individual differences are considerable. The expansion of the vocabulary continues in the following years until adulthood. The lexicon of an average educated person is composed of approximately 60,000 words. The process of understanding is a phenomenon which takes place before a child actually begins to speak, but it is much more difficult to detect compared to the speaking process. At 8-10 months, Italian children understand on average 30 different words, and at 18 months they are able to understand about 215 words. The same children, 8-10 months on average, are able to produce one word, while those aged 18 months can produce 54 words. Therefore, the words understood are numerically higher than those pronounced. There does not seem to be a direct relationship between pronouncing and understanding words that would help us better understand at which speed they learn the words. In fact, some children understand many words but pronounce very few of them, while other children understand a rather small number of words but are able to produce more vocabulary. The mixing of languages, defined as linguistic code mixing or code switching, which is a normal stage of language learning that is absolutely natural in children, is typically overcome spontaneously around 4 or 5 years of age. Until both linguistic systems do not reach satisfactory level, enabling clear communication to make sure the child is understood, he uses all the tools at his disposal. Or in the case of a bilingual child, both languages simultaneously. As the vocabulary at the disposal of the child increases, the need to use the support of the other language disappears, and the code mixing decreases until it finally disappears. The phenomena of interference between one language and the other are obviously greater in bilinguals, but do not seem to cause problems other than interference phenomena within each language. However, to limit the mixing of different languages or the inappropriate passage from one language to another, you may want to anchor each language in a very specific social ambience, affective or of play. We often underestimate the ability of our children to learn languages. The brain has extraordinary potential. A child learning different languages is facilitated in his cognitive development in general. For this reason, the ability to think in different languages is often considered an advantage. Therefore, we must be aware of the positive effect that learning a language produces on the cognitive processes of young people. Analyzing the same phenomenon from different points of view and observing it through the lens of different languages can contribute significantly to the development of cognitive skills. In other words, being able to formulate thoughts in more than one language enhances cognitive abilities in young people's learning skills. Being able to think in different languages can enrich our understanding of the concepts and expansion of our concept maps. This develops the associative capacity and enables young people to achieve a higher level of learning. The integration of curricular subjects with language learning is not only based on a foreign language. What is taken into consideration is the overall development of the child's language skills, even in the mother tongue. It can happen early on when using more than one language that pupils tend to mix sounds and words. It can manifest a certain degree of interference. This means that some elements of a language can be used in the other language. The interference is part of the normal process of language learning and should not be considered an alarming sign unless it becomes too frequent. The most natural way of learning a second language takes place in an unconscious manner in children under the age of 6 or 7, through social activities or play, as long as everything is organized by people who have a throughout understanding of the language. With the shared action between the teacher and the child comes the desire to communicate, but there is more to it because it makes us want to know the meaning of these words. First of all, a word is a mixture of sounds without meaning, and then, when repeating it, we associate the context with how the adult pronounces the word. The child observes WOPs items and shares the experience. The word is thus lived realistically. It is manipulated and integrated with situations, objects, and actions. Gradually, after several repetitions, the word is detached from the specific context and becomes a symbol that represents an object. The child has understood the meaning of that word and has actually learned to say it. Learning to produce sounds, constructing sentences, and understanding a language different from their own gives way to a series of mechanisms that, before having to deal with the technical aspects of translation, initially give the overall impression of strangeness and unfamiliarity. This means that in order to contextualize the learning of a foreign language, you must include it, first of all, in a familiar pattern to the child, and then, in a communicative dimension, you must be able to limit him significantly to those obstacles that arise naturally for this type of learning. In conclusion, the students are not passive spectators, but participate in the events of the story through the teacher's gaze. In this way, they experience the excitement and the magic firsthand. A child has a unique brain plasticity. In the early years of life, the brain is the protagonist of a very intense growth, with ripening times that vary according to the areas of the brain that can be summarized as follows. In the first phase, there is a sudden increase in the neuronal density and synaptogenesis dependent in part of the genetic factors, maturation, and in part of the interaction of the child with the surrounding reality, development. Then Follows a second phase corresponding to a slow synaptic reorganization, depending on both the frequency of exposure to stimulations and responses that the child associated with stimulation. Finally, with the process of myelinization, the brain maturation terminates, and the nerves channels are permanently stabilized. These values are carriers for languages, and they train citizens of the world to a degree that they can live, study, or work in a multi-ethnic society. Multicultural and multilingual is one of the objectives of the European Council. It is desirable to start this process from an early age. The resolution of the European Council, dated the 16th of December 1997, underlined the need to give all European citizens the opportunity to learn more languages. In particular, it requires member states to encourage language teaching early on and to raise awareness among the actors involved, in particular parents, who in the end benefit from such a choice. Language learning at preschool levels has become a frequent object of study and debate, so much so that in 2011 the European Commission created a handbook for an effective and sustainable development of language awareness in preschool within the Strategic Framework for Education and Training, ET 2020. An ideal learning environment is therefore one that is closest to the natural setting, where priority is given to more content than form. The target language is used as a mean and not as an aim of teaching, and the environment seeks to foster broad exposure to the language. The quality of the natural environment also depends on the presence of extra-linguistic factors to make the understanding of new sounds easy and quick, such as images, videos, songs, toys, household items, and daily life. These factors are called concrete reference. A fruitful environment for language learning is one in which you use a code in the social context when playing games or in the daily activities of a child's life. Very often, foreign language preschool programs, as well as school programs, only include 2 or less classrooms hours per week, which do not always fit the purpose of language learning. Children generally tend to prefer their peers as source of new linguistic forms, and they can count on their parents as well. Since it is a foreign language, they cannot tap into one or the other sources. Therefore, the single point of reference for this purpose is their tutor. The tutor then weighs the responsibility of the effectiveness of learning. It is of primary importance that he or she not only has language skills, but also pedagogical skills to work with children.